welcome to Take Human Action PA, episode 39. I'm Calvin. I'm your host, and we've got Autumn back with us. How are you doing, Autumn?
Hi, I'm good, Calvin. Thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to talking to Amy.
Yeah, good to see you again. I'd say it's been a while, but it hasn't really for once.
No, right? We were just together in Reading at convention, and then it's
Yeah,
a lot of
and
follow-up business.
yeah, I saw it. Well, we were supposed to be at the same place when at the rally a couple weeks before, but I never ran into you. So, we still got to make up for that a little bit.
Yeah. I kept seeing you. You were very busy. I was kind of keeping on the outskirts, watching things go down. The march to the White House was my favorite part of that whole day, though.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that because that was the one part I missed out on. So we'll have to talk more about what that was like at some point in the future because I definitely want to hear about it.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah, but speaking of someone who has been to those past two events with us, I want to introduce our guest. So she is the Vice Chair of the Libertarian Party of Delaware, board member and candidate officer for the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus, president of Anthem Planning, and she also has the distinction of being one of the LPPA convention's honorable speakers. Let's bring on Amy LePore. How are you doing, Amy?
Hey, it's good to see you both.
Yeah,
wonderful after spending some time in Reading with both of you. It's wonderful to see you again.
Yeah, it's great to have you back. Yeah, usually I don't get to see you this much, but I guess this is like the third time now in a couple of weeks.
That's right. Yep, the rally as well.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, those are all good events. I think that they, hyped a lot of people up, and they might be looking to see what's next. And I think the title of the episode says it all. We're going full gear into campaign season now. We definitely got someone on who can tell us all about it.
It has turned out to be an exciting year already. We are building up our endorsements, and our goal is, of course, endorsements in every state. So we work toward that goal, but we have our first win already for 2023. We had Chris Laurent from Chicago win local office. The race he ran was pretty awesome because it's not something that is common. Police accountability boards are being mandated in many states. And in Illinois, they are, at least in Chicago, they are elected and they are not appointed. And so Chris Laurent from Chicago is a police district council member for District 14. So we've got a libertarian watching over what the cops do in Chicago, which is pretty cool.
That's great.
Yeah, it's a great way to start the year. I definitely want to get more into that. But first, since this is your first time on the show, why don't you tell us, how did you get here? What got you all into all this libertarian business? Like, how'd you end up with us?
Yeah, poor Calvin and Autumn. I feel like you already had to hear my story at the convention the other day. But in brief, I was a local government employee. And that would turn anyone libertarian, but working in public safety, working closely with communities affected by crime and by disaster, I learned very quickly that government often overpromises and underdelivers, and that community does it better. And that led me down a long road to becoming a libertarian voter. And an even longer road to becoming active in the party. So that's, put me here kind of right around the time when COVID started. The COVID regime came into power, and when COVID kind of hit all of our radars, and we saw that our states would be locked down, our businesses would be shuttered, and our lives would be changed forever. So that was really a time when my family and I felt like it was time to step up and become active in the party.
It's such a common story, isn't it? Yeah,
it really is.
A lot of people who are active right now, their story is, I've been a libertarian for a long time. I never really saw politics as a great vehicle for change. But after COVID, I became active. There's so many people who say, yeah, I've been in the party active for about 2 or 3 years. It's a common story.
Yeah,
it's all too common, unfortunately.
Yes.
Right. So let's hope that we can inspire more people to get involved without us having to have another national disaster, right?
It is the beauty of something like the Take Human Action Tour and Project Decentralized Revolution and Run as Libertarian, all these kind of umbrella terms for what is really just a strategy to take back your towns.
Yeah.
Take back your counties. And so, you know, the part of the one of the flagship pieces really of these strategies is our, as you had alluded to earlier, kind of the beginning of candidate season and really rolling out our local strategy in 2023. So hopefully that gets people excited. We are really excited for this first tour stop in New York City. And I'm happy to try to field any questions you might have about what that's going to look like. I'm hosting the tour stop in New York City, so I'm super excited, but I'm super nervous to be with all these really smart people and to be introducing them. So that's quite an honor for me.
You're going to do great.
Oh, yeah, the goal really is to kind of, you know, our after Reno tasks are huge, right? Electing local people in our areas, continuing to recruit, continuing to bolster what is possible in the party.
Yeah, exactly. That's summarizes it perfectly. But before we talk about that stuff a little more, though, I want to hear from you. So people might not be too familiar with, you know, what exactly does the candidate officer and the Mises Caucus do? In what capacity do you work with the candidates? Like, which candidates do you work with? Do you have to be like a caucus member to sign up for some of the programs that we have? Like, how does all that stuff work?
I'm going to try to answer all those questions, Calvin, but you let me know if I miss any of them.
No,
So
that's fine.
I'll talk a little bit first about my role, and then a little bit about who can benefit from the training and the candidate support. So really, I see the program as two halves of a whole. On kind of the front end, I'm responsible for working with an awesome team to vet and endorse candidates. So we vet our candidates pretty closely. We make sure they are aligned with the Mises Caucus platform. We make sure they're going to run active races. We do not endorse paper candidates. We make sure that they're going to be engaged in their communities. We prefer they are already engaged in their communities, but we want active races. We want door knocking. We want phone calling. We want attendance at events. We really, and then past just candidate activity levels, we are looking for someone who will well represent the Libertarian Party, people who are known in their communities. And we do a number of things. We do interviews, we do a candidate application, we do a candidate social media review, and then we have implemented some reference checks as well. We are very, we do consider ourselves to be a little selective, again, not endorsing those paper candidates, not endorsing people who are not getting out into their communities. We want winners, right? The goal here is to put people in political office. It is not to necessarily to make a show of it. It is not to fill the ballot with people who are going to sit in their basements. That is no longer the goal. The goal is to win. And you know, Pennsylvania, you know better than anybody. You have done it, and you have done an incredible feat really in Pennsylvania. And so we can look to that for some examples. But Calvin, you asked a little bit about whether or not you had to be a caucus member to be endorsed.
Yeah, that has come up. Like, we've had some people sign up for, I don't know which link they signed up at, but they somehow ended up on one of our lists. And, you know, they were people, in some cases, they were people who weren't necessarily, you know, strictly aligned with the caucus, but, you know, they were willing to work with us and maybe interested in some of the trainings that we had. So I'm definitely interested to hear your response on that.
Overwhelmingly in 2022, we endorsed people who were not members. It is not that whether or not you are a member of the Mises Caucus is not even one of the selection criteria. Your affiliation with the caucus is unimportant. We want active, awesome libertarians who are going to exact a nullification strategy in their local towns and counties. And that is quite literally the only things we care about. I work with candidates kind of from many states and from many backgrounds, and not all with the same worldview. And that's kind of the goal, right? To tailor to local communities, to speak to your voters, and that's okay. There's kind of a wide breadth of platform types that we see. But again, they all agree kind of on this tenet of nullification as a strategy and of taking back our towns and counties. There is, again, not a need to be a member of the Mises Caucus, not even remotely. And in fact, I think it bodes well that the Mises Caucus extends not just their financial support, but their incredible network, nationwide volunteers prepared to help candidates. They apply that network to every single candidate, regardless of their affiliation. So that's, and I think I didn't fully answer your other question, Calvin. So that's kind of the other half of what our team does. Once you have the Mises Caucus endorsement, yes, there is some financial support, but that is probably not the most powerful piece of what we're able to do for candidates. We have a network of volunteers who have done, who have created videos for Facebook ads, graphic design, op-ed letters, text banking, phone banking. We do try to mobilize kind of boots on the ground for door knocking when our volunteers are remote, but because we have such a broad scope of volunteers all across the country, we do try to get all those volunteers regardless of whether or not they're in the same state as the candidate. So really the value in the Mises Caucus endorsement is that incredible network of support prepared to help these candidates, and the scope of their skill sets is pretty incredible. We can find somebody who does just about everything, and I keep good notes. We have like folks to call on for a WordPress site, folks to call on if you're using Wix. I know my awesome graphic designers, and I know my folks who are willing to sit and text bank, and there's so much value in that, and our candidates are seeing that value now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I hate to put you on the spot, Autumn, but it just so happens we have an endorsed candidate from last year in the chat, or not in the chat, but in the podcast with us right now. So Autumn, maybe you can talk about your experience last year with your race, and particularly maybe a little bit about the endorsement process and and some of the support you received after the fact.
Yeah, so I do want to also comment before we kind of slide along that
Go ahead.
As a Mises member, I'm also very proud that the caucus is putting forth the values, like putting its money where its mouth is, right? With what you were just talking about in endorsing not just Mises Caucus members, like other candidates that aren't members of the caucus, because really showing that we are genuinely interested in what's best for the overall liberty movement, that it's not a self-interested endeavor that we are traveling on. So that being said, though, coming back to Calvin, what did I get? I got amazing support. And I think I would say my criticism of myself that is worth putting out there for everybody to consider for themselves is that I tried almost too hard to just take care of myself and do everything myself. And even with me not being vocal and asking for help, Amy still came to me and was like, "Hey, you haven't asked for anything. What do you need? Like, here's a list of the stuff that we," and so with help from people who did graphic design, I had amazing postcards that I had for election day that I really was just like, I should have just spoken up earlier and asked sooner, because I spent the same amount of money printing the totally decent, but not nearly as snappy cards that I did myself, right? So I would say start early, ask early, raise your hand when you're ready, because all you have to do is have the idea of what the content is, have that picture of yourself, and we're going to all work together to find the people to put together something very professional looking. So that was the one thing that I had as like a great thing that Amy and her network did for me, and a little regret so I can help other people to do it better than I did. Also got some help putting together a video. I have no idea how to do videos. I can tell you, we've already got Eddie Wenrick in Pennsylvania, who's revving up for a Senate race in 2 years, but running for city council this year in, is it Schuylkill Valley?
Schuylkill Haven.
Schuylkill Haven. Thank you. Yeah, you're right. That's what it is. He is talented himself, and he's already started on some of his own videos. If he has the time, maybe we can loop him in. But I know he plans on devoting a lot of effort into his campaign. But there was a gentleman that helped put together a video of mine. Yeah, and I even got audio compressed so that I could post it on my YouTube video. I got help there too. That was Christian Malazante. What a sweetheart. He's really pinch hit for a lot of people's last minute, like, oh my gosh, it's not working. Somebody help me situations. Yeah. I think that there's a lot of people who have come to the table, and if you're interested in putting in the work, they're even more anxious to help.
I love this, Autumn, because I'm thinking back now to 2022.
Mhm.
And right now we've got probably like 50 volunteers. When we were working with you and your set of candidates, we had like 8.
Oh wow, yeah. Well, so maybe that's why I was like, I'm just gonna try and do it all
We
myself.
had
Kidding.
like 8. And
Wow.
we put in 2 months between that set of folks and the people who are working on candidate vetting and endorsement, 500 hours
Yeah, wow.
in the 2 months leading up to the election. And I came on board like the end of August, and it was just go time. And one of the things when you mentioned Christian, and one of the reasons I'm sitting here giggling is because I'm thinking, it's always we have so many people who show their value in so many places, and they're just always the ones who raise their hand. So Christian Malazarti is the best example of that. He helps everyone. He is an incredible asset. But Matt Lawrence, working at the rally, working with our candidates, Sarah Eisenhower working at the rally, working at with our candidates, just kind of always there, always raising their hand. And so they are kind of when I think of our volunteers, it's just, Carrie Eiler, put together your postcard.
Yep.
And build a template for our candidates that was that same template was used by Bill Schultz in Kentucky, and he won. So,
Oh, cool.
just the same people raising their hand all the time and contributing so much effort. It is a lot to ask someone to run for office. A lot.
Yeah.
So I am really grateful that we have people who will support those brave souls who step forward, who want to do this and make their communities better. So that's pretty cool. And I'm always hearing those same names pop up.
Yeah. I'm glad too that we have expanded, because that was one of the things that we were talking about. 2022 election cycle was like, wow, we got a lot of people step up to campaign, and it's a commitment, right? So people, as much as they want to help, even kind of jumping in out of nowhere towards the tail end, you got to be there for the warm up a little bit, I think. So it's good that we're more revved up this time.
Run as Libertarian has just over 300 registrants now. Mostly candidates. I bet you it's a 60-40 split, candidates to campaign managers. So we are really building a bench. We have training that you can attend, kind of virtual training, but that's also recorded, and we provide those links. But we're building a bench of both candidates who are kind of dipping their toe in, they're thinking about it, they want training, they want to know how to build a campaign plan, and then also managers and volunteers for other campaigns. But one of the coolest things that's getting ready to happen is in places like New York and the other tour stops, the second day of the tour is in-person candidate training.
Yeah.
So on Sunday, April 2nd in New York City, come hang out, get free candidate training. I'm saying candidate training. It is also absolutely for campaign volunteers and campaign managers and anyone really interested in kind of the campaign design process. Free training with Larry Sharpe in New York City.
Yeah.
So for people who are listening on the podcast after the fact, I want to highlight what some of those resources are and the links for them, which are also in the episode description, but I'll mention them anyway. So runaslibertarian.com signs you up as a candidate, which will get sent to Amy, and then Amy or someone on her team will follow up with you and try to work with you on your run for office. Now, for the Take Human Action tours, you can look all the information up on that, takehumanaction.tour.com. And as you said, the first one's coming up soon, which was particularly relevant to what I assume is most of our audience here in Pennsylvania. as it's the first one and it's in New York City, which is going to be the closest for us. So April 1st and 2nd, I already booked my tickets. So I want to see as many of you guys there as possible. Let's go out and see all these speakers. I happen to have a list here: Tom Woods, MAJ TOURE, Gene Epstein, Mike Maharrey, Keith Knight, and then the campaign boot camp hosted by Larry Sharpe. So that's not something you want to miss.
You know, Calvin, I can't remember how much, but I think we should highlight how affordable this event is too.
That is true too. It is. Well, Amy, you might know off the top of your head. Otherwise,
I want to say it was either 35 or 40.
Yeah. So I actually do have the page open. It says if you want to buy a ticket, I want to say it's $35. But I will double check.
Yeah,
I think that's right, Calvin. And then there is an additional cost for lunch.
Yeah, general admission is around $35, and if you want to buy a lunch, it's an extra $30 on top of that, something along those lines. Yeah, it's like $60 for both.
But the reason why I call it out is, you know, don't let costs get in the way, because that's an amazing speaker lineup to get to see at that price. I mean, an extra $30 actually isn't that bad for lunch either, to not have to take the time to find somewhere else to get it. And the second day of training. So especially, you know, a good portion of those of us who are on the eastern side of Pennsylvania, you don't even have to stay overnight. You can make the drive 2 days in a row. We can work out carpooling. Just let us know.
I would also like to plug, in New York City, free beer and free wine.
Oh yeah. Well,
So,
I plan on taking the train myself. If you are in the Philadelphia area or near Trenton, that is definitely an option for you. I plan on doing that myself. So keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, we have Mecox in Maryland, who own Fifth Company Brewing. They're in Perryville, Maryland, where I grew up. And they are bringing beer.
Cool.
So free beer, and a winery as well. I don't know as much about the winery, but one of the perks of coming to the New York City beer stop. Okay, I almost said it.
Okay, the true purpose has been revealed.
Yeah. So you know, I think the idea behind the tour stop, and Mike says this best, right? But the idea behind the tour stop is really the speakers. First, the speakers, as Autumn has said, are incredible, and what a bargain really to come in to see them speak. So there's that. There's educational value on Saturday, but I think also, you know, Saturday night we're all going to hang out, right? And really that is as much a part of this as is anything else, is building culture and building community in the way that only the Mises Caucus does. And so being able to do that, pulling people from multiple states, being together. So that is really a huge piece of this. And I think Mike is kind of looking now for some spots for us to do that in New York. And then again, kind of that third value there is really the next day with Larry doing candidate training. So there's a lot at each tour stop. And I know we're just talking about New York right now because we're going to be there and it's kind of close to where we are. But obviously, you know, this is right now a 6-city tour. So I think.
I'll mention the other ones real quick. Then I want to go to the chat. So Chicago, Illinois, Nashville, Tennessee. That's April 15th and 16th, and April 22nd and 23rd, respectively. Then we have Austin, April 29th to 30th, Oakland, California, May 13th through 14th, and Denver, Colorado, May 27th to 28th. And the speakers on here are they vary at each location. Some of them are really cool and not people I would expect to see at libertarian events. Like I'll say one that stood out to me. I'm not gonna read them all because there's so many, but I saw Ian Crossland on here at one point. I was like, wow, I didn't think he'd get involved with one of our events necessarily, but that's kind of cool to see the variety of speakers on there.
Ian being there is something we are really excited about. Absolutely.
Yeah. And as far as the donors go, like one of them is not a group, but mentioned by name, actually lives 2 counties over from me, Mecock in Pennsylvania. So shout out to Peggy Schmidt for being one of our incredible sponsors for the Take Human Action Tour. So now let me go to the chat. So we actually have Eddie Weinrich in the chat, and he is saying the same thing as Allison Graham. So I'll show her message. Congratulations to our Pendle Borough Council president elected this week, Joe Adams. So he was on the Borough Council. There was a vacancy that he filled, and he did not expect to win again, but a coalition of Republicans and Democrats came together and essentially re-elected him as Borough Council president.
I love all these early in the year wins.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have some more in March.
Yeah, so this is really good news. Love to see it. Congrats again to Joe Adams. He's in my county, so I'm a little biased, but it does give me a good feeling on the inside.
Yeah, I've gotten to hear him speak at least once. He seems like a super solid dude, and it's really, I think, people, no matter what party they're affiliated with, when it comes to their local government, they can tell when somebody is sincere, when somebody has, a good moral compass, and they just want to do what's best, and they're not just in it for themselves, for self-enrichment. And I really like hearing, especially right when the Democrats and Republicans come together and don't fight too hard against those filthy third parties.
And if you want to hear our talk with Joe, go back to episode 36 where we interviewed him. So there you go. I can do that now. All right.
I'm going to drop into the chat the link for the Take Human Action tour too.
Yeah, definitely do that. Oh, and I told Joe Adams actually live on that interview about the Take Human Action tours. So I need to follow up with him and see if he's going, but it's definitely on his mind.
Okay.
Yeah. So is there anything else? I know you said that you might be able to find out some of the topics that would be covered at the campaign training on Sunday. So is that something that you're able to discuss now?
I don't have a whole lot of detail other than the fact that because it is a boot camp, I think the goal is to tackle some of the basics. We've done a lot of that in our online training. But sometimes there's so many people, it's hard to kind of get a question in, and it's a little awkward when it's virtual. So I look forward to someone like Larry, who has an amazing experience campaigning, being able to provide a primer for our candidates and our campaign managers. So I think he's going to tackle the probably the most important basics, but I don't have a granular level of detail on what that's going to look like. Yeah. Other than to say it's going to be awesome.
Yeah. So some of the newer people in the movement might not be familiar with Larry. So could you give us a quick background on who he is?
I certainly can. So Larry is a two-time gubernatorial candidate in New York. He is known as an entrepreneur, a small businessman, and he is host of The Sharpe Way, which is an incredibly popular podcast. Larry is, I think, he is so supportive of the movement, certainly of the Mises Caucus, but of the movement in general. I like that Larry has on to his podcast people who are running. I think of Tommy Brown in Indiana, just people who are running even in local races. He's not a guy who's only concerning himself with big names and people running in big kind of flashy races. So again, just that level of experience and expertise and exposure delivered kind of in person to our candidates is going to be pretty powerful. Come out and see Larry if you're nearby.
And I'll just add quickly to that. He has been around for a while. I remember my first Libertarian Party Pennsylvania convention in 2017. He was our convention speaker. He was like the featured convention speaker. So he's been involved for at least that long, working hard, traveling to a bunch of different states and campaigning for races in New York.
Yeah, we were lucky to get him on a day he was free. Right. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So, Autumn, you have any more comments or questions on the Take Human Action tour?
I mean, I was wondering what structure is coming together for the speakers the first day of the event. Like, what can you tell us about how it's shaping up?
Yeah, so I think Calvin Calvin gave you a sense of who was going to be there. I'll read those names real quick again, regarding New York City. We're going to have MAJ TOURE, Tom Woods, Gene Epstein, Mike Maharrey, and Keith Knight. And I think we're doors open at 9. And again, I don't know when the beer and wine are going to get there, but that will give some whatever is the opposite of structure to it, Autumn, since that
Right.
was your question. And I think speakers are going to start at 10.
Okay.
I think we wrap up maybe around 2:30 or 3. And again, really, there's speakers there. I know they're going to be amenable to question and answer if there's time for that. We pick speakers who are great with crowds and want to interact with people who are maybe new to the movement or excited and don't kind of know their direction in the movement yet. So there'll be some of that. And again, really with a heavy focus on that networking and the opportunity to build culture and community in the evening together with that free beer and wine will help certainly with that as well. Yeah, so in terms of structure, again, is kind of a traditional, if you've attended the Take Human Action Tour events in the past, I know there was one in PA in recent years. If you've attended those, very much the same structure of speakers kind of offering kind of their background, offering their kind of their advice to the liberty movement and to kind of a fledgling effort here really at decentralization and a local political strategy. So I think it's exciting. There are varied speakers at each tour stop, and we're bragging about New York City tonight. But again, I think if you take a look at some of these names, we have everybody from Ian Crossland from Timcast, like Calvin said, to my goodness, both Mike Bolden and Mike Maharrey from the 10th Amendment Center are going to be speaking. Maj, Tom, Scott Horton is going to be speaking. So everyone is really excited about that. Yep. So varied speakers. Check out all the tour stops, and depending on where you are, hopefully there's one near you.
Yeah. I guess so. What would you say to somebody who is thinking that they might want to run? What do you think is the best way for somebody to get warmed up or get ready for a race that's maybe a year away?
I love this question because it is the most important question a candidate can ask. It is a question asked early,
Mm-hmm.
and the answer to it is engagement.
Mm-hmm.
So when you just make the decision to run, it is ideal if you know your neighbors, if you know your community, if you are on a board, if you have volunteered your time at a local nonprofit or in your church. People have a running start who know their communities and who are known in their communities. You want to engage not just out of political expediency, not because you're planning a run,
Right.
but it absolutely contributes to your name recognition. And it contributes to a level of trust that people will have in you that they're not going to have in you if they've never heard your name before. And that's the bottom line. So if you are thinking about running and if you want to dip your toe in, one of the things I love about what I'm doing is I'm learning from our candidates all the time. And that lets me give advice to other candidates. And so something that is really unfolding here lately is we have a candidate, Kevin Kangas. He is in Wisconsin, and he is running for a Board of Supervisors position. And when we talked, Kevin was telling me, I joined the fire committee. I'm trying to get engaged, but there was little information coming out of the town, and I was really the only one in the town board meeting. So what Kevin started to do was he made a Facebook page, and he provides information to people in his community about what's going on in the town meetings, because maybe they don't have the time, maybe they don't have the desire just yet to engage, but people want to know what's happening in their neighborhoods and in their community. So here's Kevin. He's already on this well-known board. He is already doing a service for his community, right? The provision of information, so they can kind of see past that veil, right? That generally cloaks government from the public. And so he has this running start, this incredible running start, and he's going to win. And I'm so excited. I'm excited about all of our candidates, but I'm super excited about Kevin because he will have earned that win.
Yeah.
And I will gently say to libertarians, I think you have to earn your wins.
Yeah.
We walk away a lot of times scratching our head and wondering why we didn't win when we didn't deliver for the voter.
Right.
And you don't just deliver when you're in office. You deliver at your church. You deliver in, helping at, I don't know, again, a local nonprofit. You deliver when you sit on boards and commissions. You deliver when you check on your neighbors, when you make sure that, if their sidewalk needs to be shoveled, it gets done. When you replace government and its services, you are delivering in your community. And if you can do that before a race, not just for political expediency, but because it is the right thing to do, people will know you and people are going to vote for you. But it's time to earn those votes.
It's funny you mentioned that. I want to make a reference to one of our, now former organizers in Pennsylvania who ran in a local election in 2021 now. We actually talked with her on episode 12, Kate Crosby. So definitely go, if you're interested more in her story, go back and listen to that. But short version for our purposes, she managed to run for mayor in her small town and ousted an incumbent. It wasn't even close. And a big part of the reason that she was able to do that, like she didn't have like a whole lot of people helping her other than like a few people coming up to collect signatures, and maybe they came up and knocked doors once or twice, but particularly how she got her name out there originally, like because she was in a sense laying the groundwork for this for a while, because she was volunteering at food banks. So she spent a lot of time doing that. And it got to the point where just everybody in town just about knows everybody anyway, but they got to the point that they really knew her. Like they knew her as a person. They knew she was a good person.
Kate is an awesome example. She and not only did she do that and volunteer her time in her own community, she also reaches out and helps newly elected Mises Caucus endorsed candidates like Aaron Lamb in Keensburg, Colorado, kind of hit the ground running. So Kate did a lot of things, and she continues to help, and is going to be delivering some of our Run as Libertarian training later in the year as well.
See, I didn't even know that. So that's
she's
awesome.
An incredible example.
Yeah.
All right, that's good to hear. I'm glad she's getting involved with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And, as I can attest to what you're saying as being one of the most important things, I didn't want to just run this as like here's a list of the mistakes I made story. But another one, I was a commuter. Who had a long drive to work, who was just, burned out coming home, putting my head down and getting on with my life until I was activated to get involved. And then I ran right away. So yeah, I didn't have, and I hated, well, now I'm getting involved in my community and I don't want people to think that I'm just a jerk who's just shilling for votes, right? So yeah, take that advice seriously. And what a great idea to just, if you feel like you're just sitting and listening in those town meetings, take notes and help other people who don't have the time, who were like me, the commuters who just needed an easier way to get access to what's happening.
It's pretty cool. It's an incredible service to provide, but also gives trust and name recognition. And so now, because of Kevin's cool story, when I talk with people, I spoke with a potential candidate the other night. So I'm thinking about running. I'm not quite sure. How do I dip my toe in? And he was already working with his local media, his small local newspaper. He was already writing some articles. So I could keep doing that. I could do more of that. And I said, well, we'll also try this. If you're going to start attending those meetings, share the information with your community. So like just a little bit of experience and the things that I'm soaking up from our candidates left and right. They have so many cool experiences. Sharing those is awesome. And I'll go quickly back to Kate and other people like Kate. So one thing we're doing that is definitely different than last year, which is new, is because we have a cadre of elected MECOCs, really, but people who will help anyone. We are able to provide two new things. The first thing is really if we encounter a candidate who maybe needs help with their candidate strategic plan, or they're thinking through how what strategy they're going to execute, we can link them up with a mentor like Kate. I know she has helped Aaron Lamb after his election kind of hit the ground running. but we have Kelly Cardin from California, an elected MECOC who helps candidates who are kind of working on their branding and building their brand. And he's not only offered training, but he works one-on-one in a mentorship capacity with candidates. Will Hyman has done the same thing for us, one-on-one with people who, again, are running, need some help with their strategic plan, some help with execution, or who are newly elected, who kind of just need guidance on, what's the best way to write a resolution? Or, hey, have you seen a proclamation for XYZ? This kind of thing. So now we're building a candidate base that isn't just working in their own towns, but they are mentoring candidates and they're mentoring newly elected Mises Caucus endorsed candidates. So it's a pretty cool network to build. It's new, it's growing, and I think that just that mentorship aspect has the potential to do a whole lot for our candidate network.
Yeah, for sure. It's a lot of unknowns that people are stepping into. Yeah.
That's definitely something I didn't know going in, that you had the mentorship program going. So that's awesome. That's great to hear.
Program is a strong word there, Calvin. I would say when we come across, so we've built kind of a forum for elected officials where they're sharing information and sharing their resolutions and sharing their wins. When I see a candidate who's an awesome candidate that just needs a little help with branding, or not just like a volunteer task, one and done kind of thing, we're linking them up with those elected MECOCs as well. Yeah, it's
right.
Pretty cool.
Well, Joe Adams is not a MECOC, but you should still have a conversation with him, because I feel like you'd have a lot to talk about.
Yeah. The candidates working on the volunteer side have been, but that's not out of necessity, and they're absolutely working with candidates who are not. So that's not even that. I'm saying that's not a piece of this necessarily, and I'm excited about his win. That's cool.
Yeah, he has a lot of. I mean, we talked in the interview, but he has a lot of good ideas for how we can get more wins in Bucks County. So it'd be great to see some of his ideas applied nationwide.
I'm happy to reach out to him. That's
right,
exciting.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll talk about it after the show. Then we can talk a little bit more about that. So I do want to ask you if you can share maybe a story from last year of a candidate that you ended up meeting with and endorsing that ended up winning, just from start to finish, what that process was like, to give us an idea of how idea and effort was turned into execution and a win.
Interestingly enough, you always kind of know because of it. I think I'll say it now, and I think I'll feel the same way in a year from now if you were to ask me, that engagement is the most important factor in winning a local election. Whether or not you have some lead time and a runway where your community has gotten to know you and built trust. At the end of 2020, so the November cycle of elections in 2022, we had 3 wins. We had one earlier in the year, Kelly Cardin out in California, but we had 3 wins. It was David Tyler in East Ridge, Tennessee. It was Bill Schultz in Crescent Springs, Kentucky. I always say the town wrong, so don't hold me to that. And Aaron Lamb in Keensburg, Colorado. And so instead of giving you one story, I'm going to kind of give you 3. Here's what happened. All 3 of them, at the point where they applied for endorsement, came to us with, I'm already knocking doors. My town is small. Everybody knows me, So David Tyler was a volunteer in his community, had been planning this election for a couple of years. Made sure he was on boards, was engaged, was volunteering, was highly visible, ran an incredible. I mean, David Tyler, his race in East Ridge, Tennessee, I would put forward as a model. His use of social media, highlighted his campaign. It wasn't weird or janky or just memes. It was just David and his family, and David doing things in his community. and his win was awesome for the folks in Tennessee. I know they're super excited. David came to me already engaged in his community, so it was a no-brainer. Aaron Lamb in Keensburg, Colorado, same deal. Aaron had not been in his community very long, only a couple of years, but had made sure that his community knew he stood on principle when it came to COVID. He was door knocking. He had gotten to know other people who were running for office. They had kind of coalitioned together. They knew what they wanted to do. So again, came to us already engaged. Bill Schultz the same way. Bill highly involved in his church and community, incredibly well respected by the people around him, known as a businessman. Just all three of these candidates, in terms of your question about start to finish, the start was they came to us already engaged in their community. If they needed anything from us at all, and I know that Bill got, Bill received, let's see, we had volunteers. I think Carrie Eiler built a template for Bill Schultz that Autumn also benefited from. So we did some graphic design. I think we did maybe some kind of back and forth about the other resource we have, and I think we've supported maybe Aaron Lamb with this, is we have people who have subject matter expertise in different kind of policy areas. So we were able to link Aaron Lamb up with someone who has a law enforcement background, because Aaron has a PD there, a police department there in Keensburg, right? So, and kind of working through how to interface with them, what to expect. So we can kind of, it's not just the mentorship from candidates, it's not just the skill sets, but also looking at subject matter expertise that our candidates may need or our elected officials may need on a policy area, and making sure we can link them up with those folks. So again, those three candidates, I would just say, came to us already engaged, had volunteer teams around them, or already kind of a strategy that they knew what doors they were going to knock, or who they needed to call, or whether or not it was a call or text that was appropriate for their community. And so start to finish, really, they needed very little from us. They were already engaged. And I think that's the story here.
Yeah. So you helped to just give them that final polish.
That's it. Whether or not they needed us, we were there, and that's important to be able to provide that. The volunteer skill sets at the end of the day is the most powerful piece of this.
So moral of the story, it's never too early to get engaged in your community.
It is never too early. That is absolutely the case. And for anyone thinking about how they plan for a race down the road, what that needs to look like now, registering at runeslibertarian.com. You're going to get, frequent outreach from me. It will mostly look like training, but, I always avail myself. We have some opportunities really for candidates to just hop on with me and say, like, what do we need to do next? Do you have a guy who can do X, Y, Z? But if you're thinking about it and you are looking for ways to engage, registering at runeslibertarian.com, availing yourself of really the training offerings is a good way to start to think about those engagement strategies.
Right. Starting with New York. So once again, definitely make it out to that one. So Autumn, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I am, forgive me for looking down. I'm just adding to the chat the link for Run as Libertarian too. So I am curious, because you've gotten to see glimpses into so many campaigns, have you caught wind of any just genius ideas about whether it's something that a candidate figured out a really clever way to have a big impact with just a little bit of money, or something that they did? Because that's one of the things a lot of us are, working on shoestring budgets. We hate to ask for money, right? That anybody who's really good at fundraising, I think, can really help us out. Jump on in. But can you think of any fun stories that'll give ideas for candidates to consider, where maybe they might be able to save a little here or there if they've got some creativity?
So there's a lot of this, right? At the crux of this question really is, how are people getting to know their communities, and how are they activating that knowledge, right? If you know your community, something quirky that's going to work, or examples are, I don't have knock your socks off And it's
Of
not because
course.
they don't exist. It's my deficit of knowledge and the fact that it's 10 o'clock and I'm 3 hours past my bedtime to hang out with you fine folks.
You and
So,
me both.
yeah, yeah. So,
So I'm
Well,
sorry.
we
the fact that I'm
appreciate your
functional
sacrifice.
is remarkable. But in terms of money saving strategies, it costs nothing to put your mug on Facebook saying something awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes people really nervous. So our candidates aren't doing enough of that. But
Yeah.
that goes a long way. Video is the best way to engage on social media, both Twitter, Facebook, and I'm sure the other platforms as well.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of bang for your buck or no cost, low cost opportunities, things like putting your mug on Facebook saying smart people stuff. Good, right? Going to events, live streaming those events, talking with people. So video is kind of king with social media. In terms of other low cost, no cost opportunities, you don't need to pay a graphic designer. Sorry, graphic designers, but like you just don't, because that's what Canva is for. And that's what our volunteers are for, right? So again, that service offered by the Mises Caucus, financial support is awesome, but those skills that far exceed what financial support is going to be are pretty awesome as well. I will say some of the most interesting things that our candidates do, and again, it comes from a deep knowledge of their communities, is, I often hear, I'll say, so do you need us to set up text banking for you? And they will say, no, nobody in my community wants to get texts from me. I'm going to knock on their doors, or I'm going to call them, and I'm not going to use robocalling. I'm going to just, call them like, hey, this is Tim, this is Bob, this is Bill, right? And so in terms of the best articulated strategies come from community knowledge. That nobody, if you knock on doors, people are going to look at you like you have 5 heads.
Yeah.
But in some communities, it's fine knowing whether or not your community is going to respond to text messaging or just the candidate, not even a volunteer, like knowing that that's not appropriate, but like the candidate. Like I remember Bill Schultz from Kentucky saying, I'm just going to get on the phone and I'm going to call these people. Like I'm going to call them, the candidate, not my volunteers, not using like text banking, but like Bill's going to get on the phone and he's just going to call down this list of several hundred people and he's going to ask for their vote and he's going to listen. And there's some power in knowing your community and in designing a strategy that hits all those high points, but isn't so off-putting if your community isn't one that once their door is knocked on. So I don't have any knock your socks off solutions tonight. And it is not because our candidates aren't doing awesome things.
I hear you. Yes. And I can tell you, I've seen other candidates do great things with Facebook Live, popping on Facebook Live in the most casual, I'm in the middle of running errands sort of way. I definitely did not take advantage of that enough. It just,
It humanizes the person.
Hmm.
Yeah, it makes it seem like you're not talking to some robot or some suit. It's like this is an actual real person behind the profile.
You know what? Start doing Facebook Lives before you feel like there's a lot of eyes on you. Get comfortable with it when you feel like nobody even knows you're running yet.
It just sounds mortifying, and I'm grateful there are candidates out there who will do this.
Yeah. I think we cannot, however, fail to mention how important getting to the polls on primary day is. Because, right, voters, number one, don't even realize the purpose of primary day. They think if on primary day they haven't heard your name yet, that like, oh, why haven't I heard? Why wasn't your name on the ballot on primary day? Like they don't even understand how that interacts with third parties.
We've got some primaries coming up in Florida later this month. And we've got 3 incredible candidates all running for different seats in Jacksonville City Council. We've got some primaries coming up, and we're plotting and planning some text banking to focus on those primaries for the very reasons that you're talking about. You need people to turn out. Absolutely.
And it's a captive audience. It's a great time to collect signatures too. But the earlier, just because we have more time because of the minor party versus major party timelines. In Pennsylvania, anyway, I know it varies across the states, but that's basically the setup. You have to realize that a lot of voters are just so funneled through the mainstream, right, that they don't even understand. And if you don't get out there early.
Yeah, depending on the race, you can get like half or even maybe all of your signatures on primary day if you do it right.
Yep.
I know you guys do so much of that up there in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
We're quite lucky here in Delaware.
What's different in Delaware that it's
we don't have the same barriers. We just don't. We have not been running a whole lot of candidates lately, but we don't have the same barriers.
You gotta
and
take
I have
advantage of that.
Yeah. So we've had some. Well, it's not a surprise to anyone that the party has had some turmoil over the last year at LPD, and so really 2022 ended up being just a rebuilding year.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, what occurred here in Delaware, not to take this down a negative road, but what occurred here in Delaware was pretty devastating. And so we really just found 2022 to be a rebuilding year. So I think 2024 is going to be, I think what we're planning in Delaware is really a big 2024 and really just focusing on preparing for that and recruiting candidates and preparing them for that.
Well, with you there locally to help guys out, you're going to do great. No doubt.
Yeah. Thanks for that. I have the benefit of being able to take my work with me, and I think we're going to be making a move. I don't think I'm going to be in Delaware for too much longer, but my opportunity to work with candidates nationwide lets me, continue to work with the awesome people here.
Well, come on, Delaware. You're going to pull it out, I'm sure.
Yeah. Does that mean you're coming to Pennsylvania though?
No, I mean, there's like a 10% chance. So we're between Maryland and PA, but at the end of the day, we are my husband and I both from Maryland. We're absolutely Maryland people.
Well,
so
there is a Delaware County, so it'll be like nothing.
Yeah, I've heard about it, as it turns out.
Yeah, I mean, you've got like so many people right in that area. You got Jeff Douglas, Mike Hayes. I'm not too far away. We're all there. So what are you waiting for?
Yeah, we certainly have looked in PA, just over the state line in Oxford. So it's certainly still a possibility.
I'm familiar.
I think we're going to end up in Maryland, back kind of at home.
Mm-hmm. Oh well. So I did want to address Eddie's comment in here because he did talk about the making of the videos. Because he has made some ads for himself. I've seen them. So it's talking about learning basic editing and using iMovie. So that's good. That's something good to keep in mind for our candidates as we move forward here.
Yeah, so I've not used iMovie, but I know when I was trying to provide some video support to our candidates using things like story blocks, which do have a cost associated with them, but you can have like a party or a caucus could buy like one login and the candidates could all use it. And he's absolutely right. You can. I certainly don't have a video editing background, right? But you can build competencies working with these no cost and low cost tools. iMovie, in terms of graphic design, working in something like Canva. And he's also right. We need people who are willing to put themselves out there. And that's a lot to ask of people. So providing them with this kind of nominal support that we're talking about is the least we can do.
Yeah. Well, that's a good way to start to wind things down. So Autumn, any last thoughts?
No, I think really everybody consider coming out if you haven't already bought a ticket. It's April 1st and 2nd in New York. I'm going to be there. I'm really looking forward to another opportunity to spend time with a big batch of libertarians. I don't I don't have a really big county like Delaware, like Philadelphia has. Bucks and Berks have a lot of people around. So I get excited for these events. But for $35 to see these speakers and the second day of free training, you kind of can't beat it. So if you're thrifty like me.
Yeah. Excellent. And Amy will give you the last word before we go to plugs.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing both of you in New York City. I hope to see a whole lot of other folks as well. Come out and see Maj, Tom, Jean, Mike MAHARREY, Keith Knight. We have an incredible lineup of speakers, training with Larry Sharpe on Sunday. It'd be a shame to miss it.
All right. Thank you very much, Amy. So why don't you tell everybody what you're doing now, what you're like, what are you going to be doing over the next few weeks, let's say, and then how can people follow you?
Absolutely. So people can follow me on Twitter, Archetypal Dork. However, the most important thing people can do is register at runaslibertarian.com, get that free training for candidates, free training for campaign managers. Over the next 2 weeks, we're going to be prepping for this tour. I'm going to be prepping my speaker notes and making sure I do a real good job of introducing all these real smart people and prepping for that free beer and wine that's going to be there as well.
Oh yeah, a lot of preparation goes into making these events happen. The Rage Against the War Machine rally gave me an intense crash course in that, so I can definitely appreciate that side of it now much more than I did before. So Autumn, how can people follow you?
Oh gosh, you know what? I don't even have my social medias memorized. I'm my own archetypal dork. Yeah, I don't know. Search Autumn Pangea on Facebook because at least I've got a unique name working in my favor, right? And I on Twitter, I'm pretty sure it's at Autumn Pangea as well. So I try to keep it active without getting too sucked in. It can be tough reading the comments sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, and the Pennsylvania Mises Caucus is at LP Mises Caucus PA everywhere, YouTube, Twitter, all the good stuff. And you can catch us on podcatchers also, or the Take Human Action PA podcast. So just search for us anywhere podcasts are found. So thanks everyone for tuning in to our episode. And don't forget to take human action. We're going to have Maj on next week. It's starting to look like, so looking forward to that.
Awesome.
Yeah, take care, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you both. Good night.
Thanks, Amy.